talking about the issue of parenting, raising great children as you build a great marriage, and it's so important to do both. And we're gonna talk about something that is so important today, and it's the issue of parenting, but the parenting within a step family or a blended family. And half of all families today are blended families, which mean that there are non-biological children involved, which really complicates the issue of parenting. Doesn't mean you can't be successful. But we have one of America's leading experts on this subject, Ron Deal. He's the president of Successful Step Families, has written books on the issue, does conferences across America. Would you join Karen and me in welcoming Ron Deal? Ron, good to have you here. Well, I'd heard about you for years. We've known each other for a while, but I'd heard about you for years every time step families came up. And this is, I think you were a pastor, you were helping a lot of people who were dealing with this issue of step families. And it really is, when you take the challenges of parenting, there's a greater level, I believe, of challenges when you relate that to step families, right?
Absolutely. Parenting is exceedingly more difficult in a step family situation. And it also includes the single parent who maybe is unmarried, still in the other home, and you have between home parenting issues and then within your home parenting issues.
Well, what's the most common problem? I mean, when a couple comes to see you, or you're doing a conference, and you know what people are dealing with out there, what's the greatest challenge that step parents deal with in raising children?
Well, it's hard to single it out, to be honest. There's issues of authority, there's issues of affection, there's issues of ambiguity. What's my role? What is my job? What's my place? Stepmothers will just say, I want so much to influence these children and be a positive role model for them. And sometimes they let me and sometimes they don't. And just when I think I got that figured out, something else comes up and I'm kind of pushed aside because the biological mother is re-engaged with the children, and now I'm kind of not needed, and so now I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. And so there's just a lot of questions around what the role looks like and what a good step parent does.
Right. Well, let's talk about unity for just a minute, because in the teaching today I'm talking about being a united front and not being divided. And I know that in a step family, I mean, because of the affection, sometimes the children are adversarial toward the marriage, because they're loyal to their biological parent. How can step parents be a united front?
Yeah, that's a tremendous challenge, and it's a great teaching point. I love what you had to say about that. If unity is important in a biological family, it's 10 times important in a step family, and you have to work 10 times as hard to get it, simply because of the insiders and the outsiders. And a lot of people don't really stop to think about the idea that insiders are the people that are biologically related to each other when they came into the marriage. And outsiders is anybody outside of that. So a step parent, a step sibling would be outsiders. If the step parent has children of their own, they're insiders with their own children and outsiders with their stepchildren.
My head's spinning.
Exactly, and it gets a little confusing. And so how does that make a difference in parenting and unity? Well, whenever stress comes into a step family, you naturally divide along biological lines. So the insiders hold on a little tighter, that loyalty issue you brought out, and the outsiders tend to get pushed to the fringe a little bit more when the stress comes. And so anytime there's parenting when it really matters, not just the parenting when the kids are going along, but when there's parenting and it really matters, there's discipline, there's consequence, there's something to follow through on. The biological parent and the step parent have to really consciously come together to create that united front, because stress is naturally pushing them apart. That's especially true if they have different parenting styles, for example. Let's say the biological parent, and it's hard to say, but I think it's a reality for a lot of people. During the single parent years, a lot of parents kind of get soft. And they just kind of let go of some things, and they lower the standards, and they feel sorry for their children, and they're tired, and so the standards come down. And now we have a step parent who maybe is saying, hey, the standard needs to come up. And wow, then now we have an authority issue. Well, who has the right to raise the standard, and how do you change that? And you're expecting a lot out of my kids, and I kind of agree with you, but at the same time I don't like the way it impacts them, because it makes them feel sad. And so that spins in a big direction, and ultimately what that does is the biological parent feels stuck defending their child, and the step parents on the other side, and now we're divided again.
Well, how do you get into the emotions that come into the marriage in the first place, of the anger, the hurts, just all the mistrust that's already there anyway? How do you start dealing with that first?
Yeah, one of the things we tell couples is if you're going to make a mistake as a parent, err on the side of protecting the marriage. Because it's not just a parenting issue, it's a marriage issue.
Right.
Because when that step parent feels pushed out, now I feel betrayed by my spouse, and now we got other problems, right? So the parenting stuff affects the marital stuff, which affects the parenting stuff, and it just spins in a negative direction. So again, that's why we tell people, I give people the parenting unity rules. If you're going to make a decision, have that powwow, as you said in the teaching. Make sure you step aside and go, okay, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to handle this? And if anybody has to be the bad guy, you talk about good cop, bad cop.
Right.
If anybody has to be the bad cop, it better be the biological parent.
You bet.
Because they have, I call it the mustard. You have the relational attachment and strength with your children to get the job done. And the step parent in the early phases, now see, here's another ambiguity. Step parents in the early phases don't have a lot of emotional strength or influence, but they can gain it over time. And so where you start out as a step parent is not where you end up. But you have to kind of gauge that over time. How much relationship do I have with the kids? Are they affording me a higher status as a parent figure in their life? And if they are, then I have more ability to have authority. And so obviously there's so much communication between the biological parent and the step parent that has to continue over and over time.
And I've heard it said too that especially when the marriage is new and the relationship with the child is new, it's better for the biological parent, even though you're a united front, it's better for the biological parent to be the enforcer of the discipline.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Absolutely, that's right. It's kind of like when you hire a babysitter. You put the babysitter in charge of the children and you leave. Isn't that amazing? We walk out and we leave them with our kids. And somehow that works. Well, how does that work? Well, it's because the biological parent, the last thing they say before you leave the house is, hey, she's in charge. Okay, so a couple things are happening there. We're passing power to the babysitter, who now can get the job done, but they're not really standing on their own 2 feet. They're standing on the power of the biological parent. Same
authority.
thing in a step-family situation. The biological parent needs to be the one. They have the power, they have the influence, they have the authority to follow through. They might be able to pass some to the step-parent who can get the job done, but at the end of the day, it's still the biological parent who really has to be the primary go-to person in the parenting.
Well, that is fantastic. And Ron, your book is called Smart Step Families.
The Smart Step Family.
The Smart Step Family, and your website, we're putting the address up on the screen right now. Really encourage everyone to get Ron's material because it's really fantastic. You've heard just a part of this today, but there's so much more that he has available. Go to his website. Ron, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
That is great information.
Thank you for joining us. Partner with Marriage Today and receive the Marriage on the Rock series on CD or DVD. Marriage Today's latest book, Happy Happy Love, will supercharge your marriage with practical tips, wisdom, and inspiration for every stage of marriage. Visit happylovebook.com. Follow your interests and get social by connecting with Jimmy and Karen and the Ministry of Marriage Today on Twitter. Become a rock-solid partner today and equip yourself with the tools you need for a successful marriage. $14, $28, or $56 per month. Choose the partnership level that's right for you. Become a rock-solid partner today.